My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Arcane Season 1, and this will be a spoiler-filled review. So if you haven't seen it, go and watch it immediately, then come back and watch my review because I will be going in depth. Okay, great. I love Jinx. Yeah, I didn't want to say her name in my other review just because when I found out that her name was Jinx, my heart broke into a billion pieces. Like, all her life, everyone just told her she was a jinx, that she's no good, and eventually she came to believe it herself. So that name alone, when I found out that was her name, I'm just like, oh my goodness, that is so sad. But Jinx is one of, if not my favorite character ever. Just the way she's handled throughout is absolutely masterful. From the very opening scene, you have a clear understanding of this world. They're on the bridge, their parents are dead, and it's just these two little girls, and one of them singing a song and covering her eyes so she doesn't have to see the horrors of this world. And then they get taken in by Vandal. And just because their real parents are dead, you can immediately get a sense of the attachment that these two sisters have. Then we skip ahead a few years, and you start to automatically root for her because she's kind of an underdog. Everybody's mean to her, they're putting her down, saying that she's no good, and just calling her a jinx, and you just don't want people to be mean to her. But at the same time, the event that sets off this entire story, the explosion in the apartment, was set off by Powder. So they're not exactly wrong either. But man, like just when she eavesdrops Milo saying to Vi, oh, we could do twice as much as half the age. You're just like, man, you're such a dick. Leave her alone. And she really is hurt by everyone's words around her. The only stability that she has in her life is Vi. Because Vi always defends her, she stands up for her, and she's just a naturally good sister. And I love that scene on the roof. Her big sister really does believe in her. And Powder is kind of a badass. Like, she's trying to make all these different weapons, and she's not quite there yet, but she's getting awfully close. There was a scene in the arcade where Milo's just like, oh, she always cheats, and then Powder just hits every single target flawlessly. Like, she is a badass. But after what happens with Vandal and Vi comes back and she's like, okay, Milo, Grago, we're going. Powder, I need you to stay here. And that makes Powder believe that Vi thinks deep down everything that Milo says about her. That she can't be trusted. You know, it's the time for a serious mission, and she doesn't want Powder there for her own good, for her own safety. But she's just like, by telling her to stay there, it's just like, yeah, you are a liability. And just the mental breakdown she has after that moment is absolutely devastating. And then she has an idea where she can be like, okay, I'm going to become the hero. I can save them. I know I can. And you're just rooting for her. Like, go Powder, save them. Yes. And then she goes up there, she releases her little monkey thing. I'm just like, come on, please walk, please walk. And it works incredibly well. The explosion that it sets off is huge. It wipes out Slavika's left arm. It wipes out half of the chemicals. But then that scene keeps going. And Grago gets killed. Milo gets stabbed and then dies. And Vandal and Vi are seriously damaged. And the most heartbreaking element of this moment is the fact that they were so close to getting out. Grago did create an escape for them. Milo did allow it so Vandal could get up. And then right when they were going to be out, they were going to be free, Powder tries to save them, and she kills 3 of them. And it's just so tragic. It really is. She goes down there and she's so proud of herself. Like she did something good. Did you see that? Did you see what I did? And then she sees Vandal on the floor, and Powder starts to have a sense of what happened, but she's in denial. And Vi just lashes out at her. And I'm not defending Vi, but at the same time, anyone in her situation would have done the exact same thing. Like, to make it clear, she killed 2 of their brothers and the dad. All by mistake, no doubt, but she still did it. And when Vi smacks her, it just broke me. And then she grabs her and she's like, Milo was right. You are a jinx. And then she leaves her behind. You know, she was going to come back, but just in that moment, it's absolutely devastating stuff. And Mia Sinclair's voice acting in this moment is top notch. Like, she does such an incredible job. And when Silco comes and sees her, I'm just like, oh, is he going to kill her? And she immediately gets up and hugs him. You start to realize that she does have attachment issues. Like, everything Vi just said to her is confirming that all of her insecurities, all of her self-doubts are real. And the next person to come around, she gets attached to, and Silco sees himself in her, and he takes her in. And as soon as this moment happened, I was just like, I'm in. Like, this show might be one of the greatest things I ever watched. I was emotionally devastated, and the weight of that moment is just unlike anything else. But I was just like, I can't wait to see where this goes. And then I remember, oh, there's that blue-haired girl on the poster. There was a time jump. There has to be a time jump. And yeah, that's why I don't want to do the other poster, my other review, just because I don't want people to know there's a time jump. I don't want people to realize that this is kind of a super villain origin story, but just the way it's handled here is handled with so much care and depth and nuance, and you understand why Vi did what she did and why Powder did what she did, and your heart just breaks for two of them. But then we get introduced to Jinx, and I just love her introduction. Those two guys, they're in this ship, and they're in this basement area. I don't know what the lower part of a ship is called. Dog? No. Yeah, I'm not going to embarrass myself. I don't know. But then they start to hear noises, and then the swing set goes up, and it says boom, and she puts a bunch of bombs on them. Great introduction, and she gets up there, and she's just like, hey. And then she just tosses these bombs at all these guys, and you're just like, oh man, like, she's a complete badass now. Like, she's doing bad things, but she's still a badass. She puts the bad in badass. And just watching her like this, like, it's just like, yeah, this isn't the same Powder we knew, but it was the inevitable circumstance of what happened to her. And I love that one scene where Savika gets up and she looks down at her, and Jinx just looks up at her. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't react in any way. And it's just like, oh, she's not scared of anyone. Like, she's just fantastic. Yeah. But then we get this scene between her and Silco. And basically, Savika goes into Silco's office to complain about Jinx, and Silco defends her. And then as soon as Savika leaves the room, Silco keeps talking. It turns out Jinx is in the roof, that she hangs out there. And he asks her what happened. Like in that one scene, we do have a sense that Silco has a genuine love for her. Like, at first, I was just like, oh, is he being manipulative? But first, he asks immediately for her side of the story. And then he trusts her with her life. He allows her to get close enough to inject him with his medicine. And then when he asks her to take some time off, and she's like, no, I'm fine. He knows that she isn't, and he gives her the time off anyways. And it just really shows their father-daughter relationship there really well. It highlights the love and trust they have for each other in just one scene. I forgot to mention talking about this one section on the ship, but I love how we immediately get a flashback of V, because right away it shows that Jinx still isn't over what happened. Like, she might be this new person, but she hasn't gotten over anything. And with every joke, every line, whenever she's trying to be funny, and she succeeds, like, she cracks me up time and time again, but it's all to disguise the pain that's underneath. You know, she's trying to hide her vulnerabilities, and I just think the way that the voice actress Ella Pannor does that is some of the greatest voice work ever. Like, absolute masterful work. Quite frankly, I find her character to be a brilliant deconstruction of the mad, evil villain, and it's just handled so well. You know, you even get a sense right from the get-go that she still hears voices from Milo and Gorgo, that she's going a bit insane, that she's not well mentally, and that she's constantly at battle within herself between Powder and Jinx. And the way they showcase that to the animation is just absolutely incredible. Like, it highlights that chaotic nature of her so perfectly, and how she sees things and everything just so perfectly. Like, right after Silco's just like, you know, take some time off, he says he'll get Savika to do something. And she's just, her first reaction is, her? Why her? You know, I can do it. She doesn't see it as a sign of love, she sees it as a sign of distrust. And it's her insecurities rising up. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and make my dad proud. I'm going to go ahead and get the gemstone. So she goes out there, and I love this scene. Like, that really was the perfect trap. And I also love how her symbol is the monkey. The monkey that ruined her life. The monkey that set off that bomb. That's the symbol of her character in the future. So there's so much detail that goes into the show, and I just appreciate it. And then we get this great sequence of her. She's actually building the bombs that eventually come into play later on in the show. And she's listening to the song Get Jinxed. And I just love this scene. It just highlights her chaotic nature and just her reaction to everything. You killed half a dozen guards instead of building on fire. Yeah, I just love it. Like, don't get me wrong, she's doing some bad stuff, but I just think the character is so humorous and entertaining to watch, and there's just a chaotic nature to her that I really like. But at the end of that scene, she still goes up and hugs her dad. You know, she just wants to feel loved by him, and she does in that moment. And it's actually a really nice moment. Then we also get this one moment where she's trying to create a weapon with this, and it sets off the flashbacks of what happened in episode 3. And once again, how this animation uses the flashback so perfectly is just unlike anything else. And when she just breaks down to tears being like, it was an accident, she's still beating herself up over it. And it's just heartbreaking to see. And Silco's trying to raise her the way that he changed. He wants to raise her in the way that he sees the world. So his viewpoint is that the best way is just to allow this pain to fester in and become something stronger. And he wants to help her with that. And when Jinx hears that her sister is still alive, she starts to question everything. She starts to wonder if anything in these past few years was real. Did Silco actually love her? Or was he just manipulating and lying to her? And I just love the scene where she gets this information from Savika. Of course, I want to say that I love that little wave as Savika passes out. Just that little, I think that's great. And then I think we got off on the wrong arm. Maybe we should try the other one. And then Savika says her bit, and then she starts crying, and then she's like, "Achoo!" And just kicks the seat back, and she's like, 10 out of 10 toots. And I got the perfect way to send that message. And the way she does it is great too. I just find this character to be hilarious. But it's also really great because Savika mentions that Vi is just an enforcer to highlight Jinx's insecurities. And Jinx just plays it off like a joke. She doesn't care about it. But she really does. And it really sets off something in her. Even though she hides it in that moment, it does fester within her. She does wonder if Vi just wants the stone, or if she wants to be with her sister, or is she bringing in enforcers there to bring her down? Like, what's going on? And you start to understand her doubts. And when Vi sees her on that tower again, this entire scene is just brilliant. I also love how Vi realizes that Jinx gets her name from the last thing that Vi ever said to her. And you just feel the weight of it all. And just as that scene progresses, she becomes more and more aware of just how unwell Jinx is and how much of it is her fault. And even during the action sequence, she sees Jinx fighting and she doesn't see Powder. She does genuinely miss and care for her sister. And she's unsure if she can trust Vi, she can trust Silco. She's just a mess right now. She doesn't know who to trust, who's got the best intentions in mind for her. She has not a clue. And you just see that so well through the visuals. She does visit Silco again and he asks her to get the stone. Actually, I do love that line. She says, I went here, I went there, went to see some dead ends, and it turns out they're not all dead. I just love that line. Like, she's really funny, but she's so menacing at the same time. And man, I'll keep saying it, but Elle Pornell is just an amazing voice actress here. She really is. But then she does get severely damaged. She's in lots of pain, and she gets healed. And as soon as she gets healed, she's just like, you know what? I want to settle this once and for all. So she kidnaps Caitlyn, she kidnaps Silco, and she kidnaps Vi. I just want to say that when she gets those pink eyes, oh my goodness, she is scary. Like, so badass. But I just love the conversation she has with Vi, where she's like, you think Silco created Jinx with all of his speeches and become what they feel, but no, it was you. Because if Vi didn't react the way that she did in that moment, none of this would have happened. But at the same time, you still understand it, and that's just part of the brilliance of the show. But anyways, I love this entire tea table scene. Like, it just has that Alice in Wonderland quality, which I think is completely intentional. And then Silco sitting on one end, you've got Vi, and then she's like, "Oh, I went to see your girlfriend this morning, and I made her a snack." And I'm just like, holy shit, what's under that tray? And it doesn't turn out to be anything, but my goodness, I just want to say the made her a snack scene, like that line is just brilliant. But Caitlyn tries to attack Jinx, and Jinx just knocks her out in the most badass of ways. And then Vi's trying to bring Powder back, and she keeps calling her Powder, and she's trying to remind her of Powder and her family of Vander and Milo and Grago, and she's trying her best to bring her out. But the way that Vi's trying to bring Powder back only brings out more Jinx. Like, she thinks that she's helping her by mentioning these names, but all they do is remind Jinx of what she's done. And just the visuals in this scene about how she feels beaten down about the ideas of those characters, and oh my goodness, it's just absolutely brilliant. But at the same time, Silco's about to shoot Vi, and she still comes to her sister's aid, and she still defends her. In that moment where she realizes what she's done, that she killed yet another father by mistake, heartbreaking. Silco's last words, though, were everything that Jinx needed to hear her entire life. They were the words that she needed to hear after blowing up that building and getting half of her family killed. And she just realized that she'll never be loved by anyone like she was by Silco again, and she just gives up. She doesn't want to try to be anyone else she's not anymore. She takes the name Jinx because everyone called her a Jinx, and now she just finally accepts the fact that she's a screw-up, that she'll keep screwing up and get the people she loves killed. And when she sits in that Jinx chair, it's not a, "Oh yes, I choose the villain route, ha 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 ha." It's a, "I'm a broken and damaged person, and I've got nothing else in life, so I'm just going to embrace it." And it's just heartbreaking, it really is. But that one line, "I was hoping you'd love me like you did when we were kids, even though I'm different. But you've changed too, so here's to the new us." It's devastating. It completely breaks my heart. Like, every time I've watched the show, I'm just devastated at this point. I just feel for her. And then she goes out and she fires at the council, and just that single tear as she hears Silco's voice, "We'll show them. We'll show them all." Oh man. Like, this isn't an action of pure evil. This is an act of pure pain and agony, and you just want to hug her at this point. She's just accepted defeat. She's accepted how she is, and she's accepted the fact that she's never going to be loved again. And everything that Silco said about Vi is absolutely correct. Vi wouldn't be able to love Jinx the way that she is. And it's just like, will Jinx ever be able to go back to Powder? But you can't undo the trauma. So there really is a tragic layer to it. And my goodness, just the writing behind this character is absolute top notch. Like, she's scary and menacing as hell, and when the fights between her are going down, she stands her own most of the time. There was that one scene where she's fighting at that arcade, and she still got number 2 behind Vi for the high score. But just keep in mind, that was the first time she's ever used that machine. And yeah, she's behind Vi, but the marksmanship and the craftsmanship behind her character, like, she is a real threat. But she's also hilarious. There's so many great lines. Like, it just cracks me up time and time again. And just the emotion behind it, like, you can always tell that there's a certain vulnerability that she's trying to hide. And this character is just so perfectly utilized and written, and the voice performance is breathtaking. And, you know, I do like this one line, that her first act as Powder, her last act, was defending her sister. And her first act as Jinx was avenging her father. And I do think that's very true. And man, I just absolutely love this character. One of my favorite characters ever. And I can't wait to see what season 2 takes her. Like, I hope that she's up in center for season 2 as well. You know, like, I like all these other characters, but this storyline is the emotional core of everything. Everything else is great, but without this, the show would just be lacking. And I need more Jinx. I can't. Ah, man, just such a great character. And let's talk about Silco a bit. I love Silco. I think he's an absolute brilliantly written character. When I was first introduced to him, I'm just like, oh, so this is going to be the generic villain. But he really isn't. By episode 3, you do start to have a firm understanding of who he is. That he's legitimately think he's helping out the Undercity. He wants to create independence because the air's been toxic, the water's been toxic, and he does want to help them rise up against the upper city. And, he's maybe going about it in the wrong way, but he does got good intentions behind him. And he had his brother in arms, Vander, with him, and when Vander left them to go off with his family, he viewed him as weak, he viewed him as pathetic, and he hated him for it. And it's not until the end of this show that he starts to understand his friend. He's absolutely right. Like, he's about to get everything he ever wanted. And all he'll be losing is a headache. But he just realizes that he can't. And that there's nothing more undoing than a daughter. And he understands what it means to truly love someone else other than yourself. And I just think watching this character come to that point is absolutely brilliant. Like, when I first watched it, I was just like, okay, so he's going to be the evil, manipulative lawyer. But when you watch it again, his love for Jinx is genuine. Every single person complains about her. Savika, Marcus, and she does screw things up all the time, but he doesn't care. She'll defend her, and he'll count on her no matter what. And everything that he's telling Jinx is everything that he truly believes. All that you must become what they feel and all that. He's not trying to make her into a villain. He's just trying to make her into the person that he is. Because he saw himself in her. And he coped with it. He dealt with it through his own ways. And he wants to help her out like he was able to help himself. And yeah, she is a villain. And yes, he is a villain. But the intentions are there. He doesn't know that Vi was still alive. At the end of episode 5, when Savika's like, she's back, he turns around and he's like, from the dead? He had no clue, not a single clue, that she was still alive. Like, all of episode 6 is dependent on, he's worried, like he's panicking for the first time in the series because he knows that how Jinx views him is about to be changed if she thinks that he lied to her. And that's the emotional stakes of episode 6. And what he tells Jinx in that one scene, that she's not back for her, that she's back for the stone, he does believe it at that point. There's no proof to the contrary. She pops up at exactly that moment with Sin and Enforcer. And he knows that if Jinx found out about that she'd be devastated and that she'd go deeper into her state of depression. And he does want to protect her genuinely. Like that scene when he finds her on the bridge, he thinks that Vi did that. He thinks, and he feels awful about it because she's only in that position because he put her there, and then he sees her like that, and she thinks Vi did it. He thinks Vi did it. He legitimately does care for her, and when you watch it the second time, that is apparent from beginning to end, that his love for her is genuine, and it is showcased nowhere better than his last words. I wouldn't have given them to you. Not for anything. Don't cry. You're perfect. What a brilliant character. Like, he really might be one of my favorite villains ever. Because he just starts off as so generic, and just where he is by the end of it, I can't believe how devastated I was when he died. Most villains and TV shows and all that, they're like, oh, we've got our evil plan. They hardly discuss what their goal is. Most of the time he's on screen, he's talking about Jinx and his worries with her and how he wants to be with her, and because he's more focused on her than he is with his own plans and ambitions. And Oh man, just such a great character. Love him. And the voice actor, oh my goodness, what's his name? I'm gonna edit this so it's very apparent that I just looked him up. Jason Spacek just did a phenomenal job with him. Just top-notch work. And let's talk about Vi. I also love Vi as a character. Like I said, how she treated Powder in that one moment was the way that anyone would have reacted. Like, it cannot be stated enough that if Powder just listened to Vi, they all would have escaped there and this entire show wouldn't have happened. So her reaction, yeah, it's mean and it's cruel and it's nasty, but it's kind of warranted. But her love for her sister is no doubt apparent from beginning to end. Like whenever Vander mentions Milo or Grogo, she's like, I do care for them, but as soon as he mentions Powder, she's like, I can't let anything happen to her. You see it on her face and her voice, and she truly loves her. And when she gets out of prison and you're just waiting for her to find out. You know, she goes to that brothel and there's that one old creature thing who she's talking to, and she asks her, do you know what happened to Powder? And you can tell that she knows, but she doesn't want to be the one to tell Vi. So she tells her, you should look for Savika, she'll know. And when she leaves, you can see the look on her face that she knows what she's about to get into. And yeah, when she fights Savika and she finds out, just what a brutal moment. Like, you feel the weight of it. And it's so great too, because she's finding out, she's like, where is he keeping her? You know, she's sure that she's being held captive, that she's being held against her will. And when Savika's like, he works for her now, you feel the impact of it. And then Savika stabs her, but at that point, you couldn't even tell because she already feels that way. And then she gets up close and she's like his daughter. And then that's the tryst, and then she twists it afterwards. Just a brilliant scene. That is the moment that Vi's at her absolute low point. She's just beaten down by that point. And, you know, there's a moment earlier on where Vander tells Selko that he never forgave himself for how he treated Selko. And Vi's the same way. She's never forgiven herself for what she did to Powder in that moment. And, oh man, just when she eventually gets reunited with her and she sees what's Jinx become, you do feel the weight of it. And, you know, there's that one scene where she's lying in bed next to Caitlyn and she tells her about the story of them as kids, and you can just hear the pain in her voice. This is Haley Steinfeld's maybe best performance. She's incredible here, and you know, the interesting thing is that by the end of this season, she hasn't changed. She's still fighting for Powder, and I'm curious to see how that evolves in season 2. And I also do like her relationship with Caitlyn. They never specifically state that it's a relationship, but it's pretty clear, and I do like how the opposite contrast between the two of them. You know, Vi is this badass, she's street smart and all that, while Caitlyn's more sophisticated, she's from the upper land, and I do like the contrast between the two of them, and yeah, I think Vi is just a fantastic character. And like I've mentioned, Vi in Jinx's storyline is the emotional core of this entire story. It really is. And I cared for these two, not just as individual characters, but for their relationship. And how Jinx really did need someone like Vi, someone to love her and to push her towards the path of the good. And just the fact that Jinx ended up the way that she did, it's devastating stuff. It really is. And then we also got the character of Jace, who I also think is a very complex character. He starts off and he's just being beaten down. Like, by the end of the second episode, he wants to kill himself. Like, he's lost his life's work. He just feels hopeless and depressed. But then he teams up with Victor, and they come up with this plan, and they show everyone off this hex tech. And his life changes. People rely on him. People depend on him. People love him. He's up there on stage with everyone wanting to hear what he has to say. And he even gets a seat on the council, a position that he never saw himself in. And then he starts to understand the complexities of everything that goes on behind closed doors, and how you gotta get along with all these different council members and try to get them to see your point of view. But he starts to lose himself, and I think that's shown very clearly, and he starts to see the impact of the war going on. The people on the bridge, they make him puke, and then he's just like, you guys aren't doing enough, so I'll do this myself. So he goes out there with Vi, and he accidentally kills this little kid. And And that line when he's talking about, do we just leave him here? Do we let someone know? Like, what do we do? And you just feel the pain in his voice. He wants to do better. And when he tries to make peace actually happen, it's inspiring. You know, like, I guess we'll find out if he's dead in season 2. And not to be mean, but like, I hope the end of this show has impact into season 2. And I hope that a big character dies. And he's the most logical decision. And if he is dead, that one last look of him as he smiles towards Mel is just such a fantastic moment. Then we also got Victor, who comes in, he befriends Jace, and he starts to look more into this magic as well, and how that affects him. Just, you know, they just want to keep doing the next step. They're never satisfied. They want to find out more and more. We can't just leave it at that. We gotta do more. And his quest for greatness eventually ends in this person named Sky's death. And that moment has so much weight. It's a really devastating moment. There's one line said that in our pursuit for greatness, we fail to do good. And that is just a very profound line. And I love how he's about to kill himself, but Jace is the one to save him in the end. The reverse of what happened in episode 2. I love that. There's also that one great moment where he finally able to walk again and he's running, and I think it's very interesting because not only is he running faster than the boats than he was when he was a kid trying to catch up with it before, but in the flashback he's progressing. In this way he's going the wrong way, he's degressing. And I think how that's shown on a visual level is just very interesting. I love Victor as a character too. You also got Mel, who's also a fantastic character. She's very well defined. There's one moment early on where she's trying to pick out a gift for someone, and she goes with a children's toy. She gives that toy to the council member, and she tells him that it's a puzzle for the smartest of people. And that makes that guy feel good about himself, and how she uses that to get his vote later on. Like, she's really well smart. She understands how everything works, and she's very intelligent, and I really liked her as a character. And the relationship with her mom is also really well defined in just a few moments. You know, the part where Medora's just like, I had to get rid of you because every time I did the necessary thing, I couldn't take that look that you would give me. And how that ties into the story of Silco and Jinx and Vandal and Vi. Just, it's great stuff. I think Mel's a really great character. And then you also got Echo. My goodness, I love Echo. You know, one small detail I love is in the first time we see him, we hear him say that he follows some people somewhere. So in episode 3, when he tells Vi that he followed Silco, it's already established that's who he is. He follows people. But how he starts off and where he ends up, I will be talking about that bridge scene later, but I'll just say that scene is absolutely brilliant. But he just becomes a real leader. He becomes a really good person. He's just like, it's not enough to give people only what they need. We need to give them what they need to be happy, or something like that. I butchered that line, but Echo is a great character. I can't wait to see more of him, and he's a complete badass. Then we also got Caitlyn, who I've already mentioned her relationship with Vi. It's really well established, and I just think she's a really interesting character. I really like her presence whenever she's on screen. You've got Marcus, who is such a fantastic character. My goodness. He could have just been the generic corrupt cop character, but he's deeper than that. He wants to give his daughter the best life that he can, and he's stuck in this situation with Silco, and he knows that he's doing bad things, and he feels bad about it, but he can't find a way out of it. And oh my goodness, I think Marcus is a really great character. And then we also got this other character named Hack, who's only in 2 scenes. A very early scene with Savika, where they're kind of trying to take advantage of him, but Vander stands up for him. And then a later scene with Caitlyn and Silco, well, he seems like, oh, he's going to help them out, but nope, he's changed. He's a weak Katsu out, and he gave Silco their location in return for Shimmo. And I just love that because it shows how Vandal shaped people in the world and how Silco did it. And I think there's a lot of depth there. So I think he was really well developed. And I haven't even mentioned Shimmo yet, but I love how that drug is introduced and how people use it. Like, it reminds me of Venom in the DC universe. People take it and then they become these big, scary monster dudes. And yes, that's definitely there, but just how it powers weapons and how it's an actual drug that ruins people's lives, like, it just is showcased in every possible light. There's one scene in episode 3 where Deckard, he's taken now and without it, he's just weak. And then Silco offers it to him and he's just like, oh, yes, like his eyes widen up and he's just like, I need it. And he takes it. And yeah, I think Shimmer's a really well-written drug. Can drugs be well-written? Well, I guess this one is. Now that I've talked about all the characters, let's talk about all the episodes. I will repeat some stuff I've already said, but I'll try my best not to. And I will say that every single episode is great. And when I watched the show again for the second time, each episode was only better. Like, episodes 1 and 2 are so much better knowing where the story goes. So that's a huge positive to this show. But I just love the opening scene of the season. Like, that scene on the bridge just has this haunting atmosphere. The visuals of the red mist and just what's happening, it's a great tragic way to begin this story. I just think it establishes everything very well. The rest of the episode establishes this world and these characters so perfectly. It's got some thrilling chase scenes, and you do start to understand just how much Vi and Powder care for each other, and I just thought it was a really great first episode. Not a lot I can say that I haven't already about the characters of Vi and Powder here, but I do love the first episode a lot. Then we get episode 2, which introduces Jace and Victor, and it introduces the whole concept of opening Pandora's box. Like, once you create something, it can't be uncreated. And I think the way that idea gets introduced here was done so in a very thoughtful way. And I love the chase scenes with Vi and Powder against the Enforcers and how the Enforcers go looking for them in their place. I thought that was a really intense sequence. And I love Vando in this episode. That scene that he has with Vi, where Vi wants to go to war and he's just like, well, who are you willing to lose? Was such a great moment. Like, he understands that war is not a solution. And when Vi goes to see Powder and she's just like, you know, what makes you different is what makes you special, and then she leaves, that's the last time that we see those two characters on actual good terms. And it stings on a rewatch, it really does. But then we've got this incredible moment, which I'll play here. I hope YouTube allows that clip to go on, but I just love that moment. Just, Powder's upset, she knows what her sister is doing, and Vi's getting ready for it. The Enforcers are kicking down doors, looking for these people, and the song is so upbeat and happy, but what's going on is tragic and sad, and just the contrast between the two is so clearly highlighted that it just gets a real emotional response for me. And when Vando realizes what Vi's doing, and then it cuts to Vi, and the door opens up and her eyes widen up, and then cuts to credit. Oh, it's so good. I love this episode. I didn't mention Welcome to the Playground in the first episode. I like that song too, as it introduces the Undercity really well and it sets the tone. So both great songs, but All Love is just an incredible sequence. But then we get episode 3, which I've already talked about a lot, but I do love the opening scene. Vando comes in to protect Vi, and Vi's mad, that he's doing this, and what happens next is just, this is a time where I'm just like, oh wow, like, this show is going to go into some dark places because Benzo gets massacred. I forget her name, but the one enforcer gets killed, and Silco takes Vando. And this scene just has a large amount of emotional weight behind it. You feel the urgency. And everything with Jace and Victor is also really great here. Like, when they actually succeed in creating it and stabilizing the hex tech, I just thought that was such a fantastic scene. Like, it just had this sense of awe and wonder to it. It kind of reminded me of Treasure Planet. There's that one scene where all those things appear in that room, and it reminded me of that for some reason. I guess they're also both kind of steampunkish, but yeah, I don't know what else I can say about this episode that I haven't mentioned already. The fights are brutal and great. Watching Vi kick ass time and time again. There's real tension, there's real stakes, and just everything that happens with Powder breaks my heart. And I do love the scene when the bomb goes off, and just how they go about it, how it rewinds time and time again. So at first you're like, yes, knock that guy out, and then, oh, wiped out the henchman as well, and oh my goodness, she's just succeeding, she destroyed the lab. And then we see the negative effects of it, and you're just like, oh my god. And man, this entire episode it's devastating. It's a real heartbreaking episode. The song Goodbye by Ramsey is an excellent song that really, captures that emotion, and wraps up this episode incredibly well. But then we get episode 4, which is called Happy Progress Day, and this is where we get a time jump. And as soon as this episode begins, I'm just like, oh, I want to see Powder. Where's she at now? And first we get a sense of how the world has evolved with the Hex tech, and how it's made shipping opportunities to be easier for all, and how it's really changed everything. And it's great to see that in play. But then we get that great scene that I already mentioned on the ship, where we get introduced to Jinx, and she's such a badass. I won't mention all the Jinx stuff in this episode because I already have, but I do just love seeing her in this episode throughout. It introduces, well, we've already seen Caitlyn, but it expands upon Caitlyn and Victor and Jace and Mel and all those characters so perfectly. And Heimerdinger, and that cliffhanger of Caitlyn going to see Vi in jail is just I was just like, I gotta watch the next one. I also mentioned that I love the song Dirty Little Animals. Like, I'm not typically a dubstep fan, but just how it's used here is just so perfect. Like, from Welcome to the Playground, well, yeah, it has that grungy feel to it, but it's still calming in some ways. But here you've got this dubstep music going on. It's chaotic. It's all over the place. It just gives you a sense of how the world has changed since then. And I just thought that was a great way to go about it. But then we get episode 5, which once again, I don't have a lot to say on that I haven't mentioned already. It's a really fantastic episode. I love seeing where Jace goes in this episode and his relationship with Mel as it evolves. I love seeing Caitlyn with Vi. I think that's really great. And this episode's just really emotionally intense because you're waiting for Vi to find out. And that scene where she's walking down the street, and Imagine Dragons themselves are actually animated in this show, it's unlike anything else. Like, it's just handled flawlessly, and it just builds to that one moment so perfectly. And then Vi just knocks out Savika. Just, oh my goodness, that entire stuff is great. I love this episode. It's really fantastic. And then you got that great ending as the music is building, and Savika goes into Silka's office, and he's just like, she's back, and he turns around from the dead. So, once again, I said it already, but I'll say it again. He did not know. It is clear as ever in this moment. It really is. But then we get to episode 6, which is another just perfect episode of television. Once again, there's lots here that I've already mentioned, but I'll say that I love how smart Jinx is. Like, she has a feeling something is off, so she goes to the bartender, she finds a way to get him to share all the information she needs. Then she goes to Savika and she interrogates her in that clip I already showed. And then it just shows how smart and resourceful she is. And the emotional stakes of Silka wanting to stop Vi from reuniting with Jinx. Not because, he wants to be mean to Jinx, but because he knows that Vi would not accept her the way that she is. And that would only destroy Jinx even more. Like, he really does have the best intentions here. Yeah, he's a bad guy, but I do love that. And I also love that moment where they're at the old place and you can see the height chart, and Caitlyn's just like, who's Powder? And oh my goodness, such a great moment. Heimerdinger getting voted out is another great moment. I thought that story arc was really well handled here. And my goodness, one of my favorite scenes of the entire show is the Guns for Hire scene, which I'll play here. It just has this grand, epic feel to it all. Like, you just feel the weight and emotion of everything going on. It's unlike anything else. When Jinx is standing there with the blue flare-up, and then we see Milo and Grago behind her as she turns around, and you just feel the pain and the desperation in the act that she's trying to do. And for her interaction with Vi to start off good and then just to go downhill, it's just a real bummer. Like, if Caitlyn and the fireboards, is that what they're called? The firelights didn't show up. Maybe they could have reconnected in that moment. And it's a shame that they went down the way it did. But I already played the clips here, but I just loved watching Vi and Jinx reunite. It's just so emotionally impactful. It's just really fantastic stuff. But the fight scene of them against the firelights is just fantastic. There's 2 moments in particular that I'm going to play right away, but they'll just... I just love the animation, the style, and how it was all put together. Like, just check this out. So badass. Just that she's about to shoot someone, she turns around, pew, dodge, puts a bomb on, and then that guy jumps off into another thing, and then another guy's gonna jump down, she just... Oh my goodness, so flawless. I love it. And then I love the ending of this episode where she just screams no, because you feel the pain in her voice. Then we have episode 7 where we get reintroduced to Echo through the song Misfit Toys, and I just thought that really set the tone for that character incredibly well. Love this character. I love just watching him talk to Vi. It's like 2 friends catching up when she hugs him and he's just like, how long have you got out of those? And you can see he's tearing up a bit. It's a really nice moment. And when he shows her that meal of everyone that they lost and Powder's on there, even though she's still alive, Powder, the person, like the personality, is gone. And it's just an episode where you can just feel everyone mourning what they've lost, and it's really impactful. And let's just get to it. That scene on the bridge. I'm not going to play the entire clip because that entire moment is fantastic of Jinx watching them, and then there's one moment where she sees Caitlyn as like the devil in a quick second. I just love that, and she blows up all these different people. She gets Marcus killed with soap bombs, which was just a fantastic moment. But that fight with Echo, oh my god, like it's unlike anything else. Stylistically, it's just beautiful, and it's impactful on an emotional level. And just when he's moving the stopwatch, do, and then we see Jinx, Powder, and then we get that little, oh my goodness, and the music in this moment is so perfect. It's just unbelievable. I love it so very much. Then we get to episode 8, which is another fantastic episode. If you can't tell, I love every single episode. I don't know what else I can mention here that I haven't mentioned already. Let me check. I've kind of already mentioned everything I want to say about this episode. When Silco wants Jinx to get better, you can just feel how much he actually cares for her. And when Jinx is in pain and how she sees Vi and Caitlyn and how that's like the source of her pain, or that's the way she sees it, I thought that was really interesting. That fight scene with Jace and Vi going against all those people and the song Snake starts playing, oh my god, a complete badass moment. Absolutely love it. Like, fantastic stuff. Really fantastic stuff. And then we get the great cliffhanger of Jinx kidnapping Caitlyn, and just those eyes, so scary. I love it. And then we get to episode 9, which might be my favorite episode of the entire season. Like, this episode is just fantastic. At the very start, you can just feel the weight of what's happened with Jace, and his character arc is just so fully realized by this point. And I love it how it seems like him and Vi are about to get into a generic fight, but then they stop and they don't do it. And I really like the fact that they don't fight like that. And then we get this moment where the dude with the metal jaw, Savika, and the mom of the child who died is trying to kill Silco. And they walk into his office, and Silco just knows what's coming. And he knows that he doesn't stand a chance against Savika. So he just makes this little speech, hoping it changes her mind. And it does. And it just, you can just look at his face, and you can see the little movements, the little emotions that just show that he was actually afraid that he might die there. But like, he didn't show it, and he hit it very well. And I just thought that was a great moment. And then he looks at the mom, and he's just like, I would have killed your kid for this, but I guess we're ahead on that. And that's such a badass line. But he goes to meet with Jace, and they basically come up with this deal. Well, he can get everything he ever wanted in his life. The only catch is he has to give up Jinx. And I've already said it, but that scene where he's at the fountain and he just fully understands Vander by this point, and there's nothing more undoing than a daughter, and it's just a very powerful moment for that character. Then we get this badass fight between Savika and Vi in the bar, and I just love this scene. The music is perfect for it, and boy, like these two, just the rivalry between the two of them is excellent stuff. And there's one edit that I absolutely love that I'm actually going to play here. I just love it when this show does cool stuff like that. But yeah, this fight scene is just great visually, and just you feel the weight of everything coming down on Vi. Like, she is beaten down by the end of this fight, and you just feel for her. And when she whips off Savika's metal arm, that's just a badass moment. But when Jinx is behind her, she's like, "Well done, sis," or whatever it is that she says. Just so menacing. Like, Jinx with those pink purple eyes, she's scary as hell. And one other thing I love about that fight is how when Vi's feeling defeated, she hears Vander's voice. And he lifts her up, and he encourages her and motivates her. And it's a really powerful moment, but compare that to what Jinx has and what she hears. While Vi gets lifted up, Jinx's voices just continually put her down, time and time again. And it really does show how that has a huge effect on what motivates these people and how they are shaped by what was said to them at a younger age, and how that has stayed with them. But then Jace goes up to the council and he proposes peace, and at first they're reluctant, but they eventually give in, and then it cuts to Jinx, Silco, Vi, and Caitlyn are at the table. And I've already talked about everything that happened here pretty. When I was talking about the characters of Silco and Jinx and Vi, I talked about this scene quite a bit. I will say that I absolutely love it. It's a brilliant scene. It's so perfectly written. It's perfectly paced. And it just encapsulates all the characters and the journeys they've gone on by this point. And Silco's last words are absolutely heartbreaking. The fact that Jinx accidentally killed him is just tragic. Like, you just want to hug her. And then we just get this amazing sequence, which I'm going to try to play here. We'll see if YouTube lets me because of the music, but we'll find out. Just chills. Just chills. Like, oh my god, that's such a great scene. And just when she lifts up that weapon and she starts tearing up, oh, just really powerful stuff. It really is. But then the council then decides on peace, join this, and in the end, Jinx jinxed them all. I can't wait to see what happens after this. Like, I just think that entire moment is so tragic and beautiful and atmospheric and just, it's perfect. It's just one of those moments where the visuals, the music, the characters, just everything comes together and it just, man, it leaves an impression on you. But yeah, like I was saying, I can't wait for season 2. My only concern of season 2 is that I hope the majority of the council die. My prediction would be that Victor is the only one that lives, but if all the no names die and the names that we know and that we've come to care for by this point stay alive, I'll be disappointed by that. But it's still a great ending. It's a fantastic cliffhanger. It kind of gives you a sense that a war's coming, and boy, I just can't wait for season 2. Like, I just cannot wait. This show is absolutely brilliant. It really is. It's one of those few pieces of media that you watch, you experience, and you just feel different afterwards. Like, it's life-changingly good in some regards. And I'm so grateful it exists the way it does. The amount of love and passion that went into this project is evident in every single shot. And just how they wrote these characters. Like, it's some of the best character writing ever. I've never cared about League of Legends. In fact, it's so disappointing because after I was done this show, I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll give it a try. And then I looked it up and I'm just like, I'll just stick to the show. But I don't know how much of this was like planned ahead of time, but it all feels smooth and flawless. It really does. Like, this is the best video game adaptation by far. Nothing else even comes close. I also want to say that if you love this show, definitely watch the Imagine Dragons Enemy music video. Because it's all animated, it takes place in this world, and I thought it would just show footage that we've already seen in this show. But no, it's all original footage, and it's actually really fantastic. If you watch it, then watch the show again. It does enhance the viewing. It's a really great music video. But yeah, I just absolutely love this show. Jinx is my favorite character ever. Just, she's so hilarious, so many fantastic lines. I feel like we got it off on the wrong arm. Maybe we should try the other one. I love it, but she's scary as hell, and she's just so well written. She's tragic, and you can get a sense of the vulnerability and the pain behind her persona, and it's just portrayed so perfectly. Mia Sinclair and Elle Purnell just did a fantastic job voicing her. She's just an amazing, amazing character. Silco, who I thought was going to be generic, in the first viewing, I'm just like, okay, so he's a cliche, manipulative father figure, and then when you watch the show again and you understand that he genuinely loves her, your viewpoint on the character just changes fundamentally. Like, this is such a well-written, well-realized character, and his arc is very meaningful. I love Vi and everything that she goes through, and just how much she wants to believe that there's still good in her sister. You're rooting for her, and she's a complete badass. I love Jace and the character arc he goes on. Like, just everything, especially in the last 2 episodes where he realizes the price of war and how that changes his perception on everything. It's really well-written stuff. I love Victor. I think Harry Lloyd is a guy's name who voices him, but he does a great job, and what he goes through is really fantastic stuff. Just every single character feels fully developed, feels fully fleshed out. These characters feel lived in. It feels like they have a life outside of the story we've seen them in. And just this world is brought to life in such a pitch perfect way. The soundtrack and the use of it throughout is absolutely flawless and really allows this show to stand out. The animation is breathtaking, it's beautiful, it's used in some of the most unique, creative, impactful ways. And I just love how this show is about the people we love and how they shape us into the person we eventually become, whether it's through pain, regret, guilt, or just pure love. How the people around us do have a play in the person we become. And the way that's explored through every character and their different relationships is just handled in such a meaningful, nuanced way that really allows these characters to stand out. The writing is absolutely incredible. I'm just blown away by how good this show is. I really am. Just every single thing about this show worked for me to the highest possibility. I love this show. It's an absolute masterpiece. I love it so very much. Like, I'm shocked at how much I loved it. It is just... It's one of the best stories I've ever experienced. It's definitely very high up there. And I'm just so happy it exists. I can't wait for season 2. But have you seen Arcane season 1? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon. And Gavin...